Hello and welcome. Here's what's happening right now. A high-profile mistrial in a sexual assault case.
The trial stops, everything is erased, and we start from scratch all over again.
What's next in the allegations against 5 former World Junior hockey players?
We will safeguard our economy and our values.
Who is ready to vote for change in Canada?
Campaign crunch time, the final promises and push for votes. Sad but true, only one Canadian city is hosting Metallica on their latest world tour.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Jury selection got underway for a second time today in the high-profile sexual assault case against 5 former junior hockey players. Earlier in the day, the judge overseeing the trial in London, Ontario, declared a mistrial just days after it started. TSN's Rick Westhead first broke the story of the case and is at the courthouse this evening. Rick, what happened today?
The 4th day of the sexual assault trial in London, Ontario, of 5 former members of Canada's 2018 World Juniors team began this morning with a moment of drama. 2 days after Justice Maria Carrassia broke the hearing to say that she needed to think about something that had happened over a lunch break and talk to lawyers, court resumed this morning and the judge declared a mistrial. Almost immediately after that, jury selection began for a new trial, and on Monday next week, we expect to hear from the first witness in the case. It's possible next week that we may also hear from the complainant in this case, who up until this point has only been identified as EM in court documents. The players in the case have all pleaded not guilty.
TSN's Rick Westhead in London, Ontario. The federal political leaders are making their last appeals to voters ahead of the final weekend of the campaign. Today, they made a series of whirlwind stops in different parts of the country, and our reporters were there with them. Let's start with CTV's Mike Couture, who is traveling with the Liberals in Georgetown, Ontario. Mike.
Heather, Mark Carney is back in southern Ontario, hitting key ridings around Toronto. Now, many of them are close races, and the campaign hopes that Carney's presence will give those candidates a boost. Earlier today, Carney went back to the core of his campaign, visiting a steel company that has been heavily impacted by the U.S. tariffs in Sault Ste. Marie. According to Algoma Steel, 50% of their customer base is in the U.S., so the economic impact is in the range of about $1 million per day. Carney's message to workers there is that a Liberal government will help support them and the industry with a Buy Canadian plan, especially in defense procurement. That could help plants like Algoma, which makes military-grade steel. The steel industry is the largest employer in that region, and Carney was asked about how revenue from the counter tariffs would flow back to communities like that one.
It's principally going to go to those industries at the core and 1 or 2 steps removed along the supply chain. But then the advantage of that is you get the, to talk like an economist for a second, the multiplier effect of that support that goes there. What we won't do is pocket the money.
The part of Ontario better known by its area code is a key region for all parties. But if the Liberals have any hope to form a majority government, they'll need the 905 to be read.
I'm Rachel Aiello in Hamilton. Heading into the final week of this campaign, still a distant third in the polls, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says he has no regrets about not triggering this election earlier, even if it means it may cost his party seats. Starting off Friday, full of energy in Toronto, Singh evoked a bygone era of Liberal cuts to make his case for sending more New Democrats back to Parliament to prevent history from repeating itself with the next budget.
We're going to hold the line on the things that matter most to Canadians.
Then, when asked, Singh said he still absolutely stands by not helping bring the Liberal government down before they had time to recalibrate under Mark Carney.
We wanted people to actually benefit from the dental care and the pharmacare. And finally, at the time, I could not stomach the idea of Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives forming a majority government.
The NDP leader also addressed how he's remained upbeat amid a challenging campaign that could bring big losses for his party, saying he wants to show Canadians they can vote for something better, Speaking of voting, today, after Carney suggested that he'd be open to addressing electoral reform after addressing the Trump crisis, Singh stated plainly, never trust a Liberal.
I'm Judy Trin in Saskatoon. In what campaign staff said was likely his last news conference before the election, Pierre Poilievre laid out what his party would do if they were chosen to form the next government. He laid out his priorities for the first 100 days, which involves cutting taxes for people and industry, reducing crime, and cutting red tape to boost productivity. Take a listen.
1, the Affordability for a Change Act. 2, the Safe Streets for a Change Act. And 3, the Bring Home Our Jobs for a Change Act. And until these laws are passed, Parliament will not shut down for summer vacation.
Who is ready to vote for change in Canada?
Poilievre made his announcement after rallying in Saskatchewan, a province that has only elected Conservatives for the past 2 federal elections. Poilievre heads next to Calgary, another Conservative stronghold. Heather.
Thank you, Judy, as well as Rachel and Mike for that roundup. Let's turn now to CTV's chief political correspondent, Vassy Kapelos. It's down to the wire for the parties, Vassy. And U.S. President Donald Trump has loomed large over this entire campaign and again today. In an interview with Time magazine, Donald Trump reiterated the false claim that the U.S. spends over $200 billion a year to take care of Canada. He added he wouldn't mind being remembered as a president who expanded American territory. Vassy, Trump insists he is not trolling when he says he wants Canada to become the 51st state. But how will this impact the next few days?
It's a great question, Heather, because the ghost of Donald Trump, as you said, has loomed large throughout the entire campaign, but it's ebbed and flowed as well. And most recently, in the past 24 hours, we see him front and center. In general, it has benefited the Liberals. They want this to be the ballot box question. When it's about change or something different, it seems to have benefited the Conservatives. The sort of caveat in all of this is that Mark Carney has been on the defense about the content of the call that he held with Donald Trump last month. So whether it's a net positive for the Liberals that we're talking about Trump again remains to be seen.
All right, Vassy, heading into the last weekend, it's a final chance for these parties to make what you might consider closing arguments.
Yeah, very much so. And I have been struck in the past few days, Heather, at the concise nature of how they are making those arguments. I don't remember another election where it has been so obvious to voters what they're choosing between. Is it all about navigating Donald Trump? Is it about change? Or is it about parking a vote with the NDP to hold the government to account? Those are the 3 options before voters, and politicians have been crystal clear about putting that in front of Canadians. Heather?
And be sure to tune in on Monday night for our CTV News election special. That gets underway beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern and will be co-anchored by Vassy and CTV chief anchor Omar Sachedina. U.S. officials arrested a Wisconsin judge today in what appears to be a dispute between the Trump administration and the judge over immigration enforcement.
Judge, anything to say about this?
In a social media post, FBI Director Kash Patel wrote that the FBI arrested Judge Hannah Dugan in Milwaukee on charges of obstruction. They believe she intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject. Patel went on to write that the suspect was taken into custody. The man accused in the killing of a healthcare CEO in New York pleaded not guilty to federal charges. If convicted, 26-year-old Luigi Mangione could be sentenced to death for allegedly gunning down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in December last year. Mangione now faces 2 trials as he has also pleaded not guilty to state charges for murder. To the Vatican now, where more than 250,000 people filed past the open casket of Pope Francis at St. Peter's Basilica over the past 3 days. The viewing is now closed and final preparations for the funeral are underway. CTV's Geneviève Bushman is there. And Geneviève, we are just hours away from the service.
Yes, Heather, with the end of the public viewing and its massive crowds, the next phase of mourning is to begin. A sea of mourners passed through the main door of St. Peter's Basilica day and night. Still, as the gates were closed, many had to be turned away. We're too late, she says. It's so unfortunate. During an evening prayer service, the casket of Pope Francis was sealed. This in preparation for a final farewell for the funeral of a shepherd, not of a sovereign, says the Vatican.
I began to see how he was drawn.
Bishop William McGrattan heads the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops. He reflected on the Pope's humility as he filed past his casket.
As I was sort of moving through the Basilica, if I stopped, I found people coming up and asking for prayers and for blessings. There was a couple of times where some of the guards asked me to move on. So I realized that people are drawn to this moment. They feel close to God and Pope Francis.
The 149 cardinals present in Rome this morning held a meeting putting finishing touches on the day to come. Security has been stepped up. This ahead of the arrival of dignitaries, including political leaders from around the globe and royalty. Not far from the Vatican, an artist reflected on the guest list with a mural calling it a parade of hypocrisy. But some hope the funeral will unite people from around the world in a moment of reflection.
St. Peter's is something profound.
Toronto's Falguni Debnath says the Pope has a special place in her heart. She converted to Catholicism last year and flew to Rome for the funeral.
The way he lived his life is a way that is almost out of fashion because he refused to be defined by polarities.
But moving around the Vatican will be nearly impossible tomorrow with so many people expected for this funeral. Heather.
Geneviève, thank you. Coming up, a different kind of body break.
Now my elbows are up. Are yours?
Absolutely.
Staying fit by keeping those elbows up. Shoppers looked for deals at the remaining Hudson's Bay locations today. There were discounts as high as 70% as Canada's oldest company began the liquidation process at its remaining stores. Any purchases today also came with the warning that all sales are final. The company also posted this message on social media: "Thank you, Canada, for 355 years." An update to the French language face-off in Montreal, where the phrase "Go Habs Go" was banned from city buses. Now the government is stepping in to make a power play. The province's French language minister, Jean-François Robert, says the slogan has been used for decades to support the Canadians and is part of the identity of Quebec. Outrage boiled over to the point that French language office employees received threats. Robert says any future complaints regarding "Go Habs Go" will be dismissed. And that chant will be in full effect tonight as the Canadians host the Capitals.
Capitals with a takeaway. McMichael seals the deal.
The Habs will need the fans' support, trailing Washington 2-0. As for other Canadian teams, the Oilers shoot for their first win against the Kings. Meantime, the Leafs lead the Senators 3-0, while the Jets are up 2-1 over the Blues. Canada's iconic fitness duo have released a new and timely body break.
No better time like the present for Canadians to be strong.
We all know how important it is to keep your elbows up, but it does take strength and stamina to keep them up for any length of time.
Echoing the Canadian rallying cry to push back against U.S. takeover threats and tariffs, Hal Johnson and Joanne McLeod released a new video where they demonstrate a kettlebell move designed to get those elbows up.
So let's keep our elbows up by buying Canadian products, supporting tourism across our beautiful country, and by being welcoming to those around the world who visit us.
And exercise your vote.
Until next time,
keep fit and have fun.
Elbows up.
Body break.
The couple has been vocal about abandoning their plans to spend time in the U.S. after Donald Trump's ongoing comments about making Canada the 51st state. CTV National News will be right back. Antigonish, Nova Scotia is an intersection of rural and university life, a place where Canada's past and future come together. Unique in its own way, the community has its own issues and concerns this election. We sent CTV's Sarah Plowman to Antigonish to find out what matters to voters there.
A short drive to the beach, surrounded by hilly farmland, is the small town of Antigonish, home to St. Francis Xavier University and descendants of the Scots who arrived in large numbers in the 19th century. Gaelic street signs are a nod to their roots.
We've got the richness of Mi'kmaq culture here, which has been the fabric of Antigonish for 10,000 years. And then you have this rich Scottish culture, but it's also a place where we have a growing Syrian community, we have a growing Ukrainian community.
A focal point is the library, where staff stock a community pantry they've noticed is emptied often.
There's a lot of people falling through the cracks now. You know, we need to be doing more to make life more affordable for people.
At a coffee shop across the street, this 25-year-old wants Canada to rebuild its middle class.
Slowly over time, with the wealth inequality, it's becoming eroded more and more.
We created this chocolate bar last year.
9 years ago, the Haddad family came to Antigonish from war-torn Syria, where their chocolate factory was bombed, so they built one here. Piece by Chocolate is sold across Canada and the world. Tarek Haddad says when he first arrived, a lot of young people were leaving.
My hope is that, you know, every single person who comes to this community to find their opportunity or to find the resources to build their own opportunities.
He wants the current trade tensions with the U.S. to spark long-lasting change.
I really hope that we can remove all the trade barriers between the provinces.
The mayor points out how Antigonish has expanded. There are now homes where there weren't ones before, and with that, there's a need for infrastructure funding.
My ask to the next Prime Minister will be, can you help us with funding our water and sewer?
A sewage treatment plant from the 70s that this summer caused the town to stink is undergoing upgrades.
When the Loyalists first arrived in.
To this historian, Canada's future leader must give people in rural communities faith in themselves.
To make people from rural parts of the country feel like, you know, that everything they're doing is as much in our interest as it is for people in big cities.
The hope from here, just days ahead of the election. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Antigonish, Nova Scotia.
After the break, no tariffs on this metal.
Are you alive?
A heavy fan presence in Toronto for an iconic band still at it after more than 40 years. Metallica fans filled the streets of downtown Toronto this week to see their heavy metal idols on stage at the Rogers Centre. The band is in town for 2 shows, one last night and the second on Saturday night. Tickets weren't cheap, but as CTV's Heather Wright tells us, for the fans, nothing else matters.
Don't call them Metallica fans. This is the metal family.
In the arena, everyone is just, you know, like great people. It's a great environment to be in, you know. Sorry, my voice is gone from last night, and it's going to be even worse by tomorrow.
Last night was night 1 of 2 sold-out Toronto shows, the only Canadian stop on Metallica's world tour. Today is rest day for the band, merch day for these fans who lined up at this pop-up shop.
His first Metallica concert was in my belly.
10 shows later, Kristen LeClaire and her son Nolan have come to Toronto from Texas.
I just have been listening to them for so long, and they just endure. And I actually think they've gotten better. They just keep getting better and better.
The band has been touring for more than 40 years, but fans say the shows never get old.
What is it about this band that keeps people coming back for 31 shows?
The live shows. Live shows, they rock live. That's what hooked me.
And while the fans say the band is still full of youthful energy, some admit they can't mosh like they used to.
My legs and back are sore.
No mosh pits, though. Too old for the mosh pits. It was pretty mellow last night, I think.
Night 2 goes tomorrow at the Rogers Centre, with fans already looking forward to their next world tour.
They're just an amazing band, and I'll do this until they don't.
Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
Well, everything must go. Hudson's Bay began liquidating its 6 remaining stores today. Canada's oldest company has also received approval to auction off its collection of art and artifacts. CTV's John Musselman has more.
At the flagship store at Queen and Bay, shoppers were expressing mixed feelings, happy to be getting a deal on products.
I got some clothes for my kids. Everything's 40% off, so it's actually a pretty good deal.
I got bath towels for $16, and they're usually $50.
But also a little sad to see this Canadian department store fading into history.
It's very sad.
Retail analysts say the liquidation is a sad day for the Bay, a company with more than 350 years of history behind it.
They were in a channel, a department store channel, which is in decline. They couldn't create an affinity with millennials, who are the key shoppers now, and they stopped investing in the brand years ago, and it was on sort of just a descent.
The Bay filed for creditor protection last month. It was hoping to find a buyer for 6 of its stores, including the downtown location, but nothing has come through.
It's sad because it's a Canadian icon, and it's part of our culture.
The closings will leave a lot of vacant retail space in prime locations right across this country. Analysts say malls and landlords will need to rethink how they use that space.
I don't think they're going to have a hard time filling it. You know, in some of the A malls, like a Yorkdale or something of that nature, you might see landlords demolishing and putting in condominiums. They might divide up the space by level and have a different retailer, a smaller retailer by level. So it's going to be all over the map, depending on the location and how marketable the location is.
Meanwhile, as the Bay begins to liquidate its remaining stores, a Superior Court judge gave the store permission to move forward with an auction sale of store artifacts, including the 355-year-old Royal Charter, which launched the company. Historians consider it one of the country's most significant archival documents. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs has raised concerns about an auction, asking for the sale of any items linked to the First Nations to be halted.
And that was CTV's John Musselman reporting. That is our newscast for this Friday. Thank you for sharing your time with us. I will be here again with CTV National News at 11. I hope you can join us. For ongoing coverage of Canada's top stories, tune into CTV News Channel. I'm Heather Butts. See you later.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.